Hello there, and welcome to Live Irish Myths. I'm Anthony Murphy. This is Mythical Ireland. It's Monday evening. It is time for our weekly live stream. We are live streaming simultaneously on the Mythical Ireland Facebook page and the Mythical Ireland YouTube channel. If you're dropping in, wherever you are in the world, do say hello, because we will say hello back, as we have done since the beginning of this series at the beginning of the pandemic back in March of 2020. Hope everybody's keeping safe and well, and that you can hear me, and that you're ready for tonight's first delve into the world of Sylvester O'Halloran and his late 18th century history of Ireland. You'll see in the ticker below that's moving along the screen rather slowly details of our next tour/gathering, which I'm glad to report and have done already is taking place on the Hill of Ishnok on Saturday, the 9th of July at 11 a.m. Please do try your best to arrive there at around 10:30, because the tour will leave the visitor centre at 11 a.m. sharp to go up the hill, because there are other tours on that day. We have to get in ahead of them. Anyway, a very big welcome to Josie Weatherford, one of the many Mythical Ireland community folk who turned up on the Hill of Tara Sunday a week ago, on the 22nd, for our very first in-person gathering of the Mythical Ireland community. I'm here in a rainy Dundrum, County Dublin. I'm ready to listen with a cat on my lap and my knitting. Make sure the cat doesn't get hold of the knitting, or that could get messy. Irish Technical Thinker is not the first here, actually. The second, I'm sorry to report, Marcus. Josie, just get in ahead of you. But you're very welcome, and a good evening to you and all our viewers in Belfast. Alan Hoskins is in the house, another of the Tua who I met on the Hill of Tara on Sunday a week ago in Ballina, Killaloe, the home of Bale Boru on the banks of the Shannon. Barbara Barney is in the house. Jigwich Barney, Barbara even. Welcome to the live stream. Gaia Harmony is in North Leitrim. Hello there to the wilds of North Leitrim from the sprawling metropolis of Drogheda in the Boyne Valley. I hope you are well. Thanks for joining us. Archaeoastronomy Database is in the house. Very good afternoon to you, Ty. Hope you're well. Michael Pike is here. Hello, all Tua and Anthony. Well, Michael, it's a great pleasure to welcome you to the live stream. Anne Scott Doherty is in Ennistimon in County Clare. Hello, Anne. Well travelled you are these days. Lovely to see you also, and Bill, on the Hill of Tara on Sunday a week ago. Perhaps we might see you also on the Hill of Ishnok on the 9th of July. Helen Hirsch-Chatter is greeting us all from the Black Hills of South Dakota. A very good afternoon to you, Helen. Hope you are safe and well. Mandy McCurl is back on a sunny and very windy Isle of Mull, back, of course, from her trip to Ireland, where she gave us the great pleasure of her company on the Hill of Tara on Sunday the 22nd. Mandy, what a great pleasure, and a nice evening in the pub afterwards. Daisy Peters is saying good afternoon. I'm sipping a cold beer in this hot autumn in Rio. Well, that sounds just nice. I was going to say pass it round, crack open a bottle for me. Mark Gordon is in Iowa, coming in loud and clear. Brilliant stuff, Mark. Good afternoon to you. Stephen O'Hara is saying it's a bit showery this evening, but the forecast is better for the rest of the week. Yeah, there's a few big dark clouds and some heavy rain lurking around this evening in the Boyne Valley as well. Sandra Boothroyd. Hello, Sandra. Good evening to you. Hope you're well. John Main is saying Banachty to all the tour from a cold but sunny Belmullet. Looking forward to another enlightening evening. Yes, indeed. Temperatures have plunged over the last 24 hours. It's cooler than it should be for the time of year, but we're not complaining because we don't get snow. Not at this time of year anyway. Touch wood. I'll eat my words tomorrow when there's a blizzard. Adrian O'Beglin is saying good evening all. Falcha, Adrian, you're very welcome. Karen Faye O'Loughlin is watching from windy Boulder, Colorado. Good afternoon to you, Karen. Gaia was at the Hill of Tara. I do apologise for not mentioning that fact, and lovely to see so many people there, and indeed for you to make the effort to turn up. Kathy Maydeo, so happy to be here for the full episode. Yay! Rainy, cool Memorial Day holiday here in Newcastle in Washington State. Catherine Woodruff is in a hazy and hot Wisconsin. We will take if you could give us a few degrees of your temperature and add them to ours, we'd be very, very grateful. Definitely. Louise Sherrill is in the house. Hello, Louise. You're very welcome to Live Irish Myths. Angel Barboni saying, hello, all you beautiful people. Indeed, hello, Angel. Welcome. Good afternoon. Elaine Dent Lingenfelter is telling us it's very hot in Texas today. 32 Celsius in European language. 89 Fahrenheit. Wow. Baking. Wayne Bird is in the house. Hello, Wayne. You're very welcome to Live Irish Myths. Good to see you again. Anne McCallum is here from a very hot and sunny southwestern Ontario. No sign of the snow anymore, Anne. Obviously, hope everyone's well. As always, looking forward to today's episode. Sounds a wonderful tour coming up. Another time for me, hopefully. Well, fingers crossed, Anne. I will say that I am planning a series of tours and trips over the course of the summer and the autumn. I'm hoping as many people as possible get an opportunity, at least one opportunity, if not multiple opportunities, to come and enjoy the company of the Tua. Sandrine Brady says, bonsoir, Anthony and Super Tua. I'm on holiday in Normandy. Hope everyone is fine. Brilliant stuff, Sandrine. I think you're a bit closer than usual then. And bonsoir indeed. Anya Ryan says, hello, looking forward to Ishnok. Brilliant stuff, Anya. Can't wait. Only if, well, what is it? 5 weeks away. Brendan Byrne, good evening, all. I'm not late, so not going into the black book. Hello, Brendan. How are things down in Glendalough? Adina Sparks is in the house. Windy in New Mexico. There is a theme developing here. It seems to be windy in places. Not that kind of wind, people, please. Katie Brogan says, I can't get my chat to work, but I can reply. Tell Anthony I share your hello. Katie Brogan, thanks. Well, I can see your chat, Katie, so something is working. It looks to be okay this side. Is it Roisin Bricker says, Sláinte? Well, Sláinte to you also, and welcome. Lots and lots of conversation, which I love. Ask why. He is alive. Hello. If you're talking about me, I feel it anyway. Desiree is in the house. Hello, beautiful day in Grand Junction, Colorado. Happy to be here with everyone. If it's warm there, send a little bit of that this way, Desiree. We will not say no at this moment in time. Anna L says, good evening from Balbriggan, only down the road from us in the county of Dublin. A short distance by car or train or bus. A little bit further if you're walking in terms of time. Barbara Murphy is telling us it's a nice, cool 95 degrees in Tucson, Arizona. Wow. That's mid-30s Celsius. That's incredible. Brilliant stuff. Tom King is in the house. Hello there, Anthony and all the mighty two. I hope all in good fettle. Another news story and looking forward. Enjoy, my friends. Yes, indeed. Hope the forge is lit. Hope the drama's topped up, Tom. I wouldn't expect anything less. Rosanna Marsh is watching from a rainy, cold fish hook in Cape Town in South Africa. Good evening to you, Rosanna. Hopefully you have a nice fire going or some way of keeping yourself nice and warm and dry. Wayne is saying hello to Tom. Oh, lots of conversation was brilliant. Rose Corraine is saying hi from Bangor. Trip in County Down. Hello, Rose. Very good to see you. Erica in Ipswich is saying it's been a busy few weeks. Lovely to be back with you all. Well, welcome back to Live Irish Myths, and we hope that you are in fine fettle. Oh, wow. The screen is just full of conversation in the chat, which is wonderful to see. Nora Gaffney O'Connor is in the house. G.Eve Golair, great to see you all. Sea is just fab at the moment. Long swims. It's heaven. Great to see you, Anthony, as it was to see you in person for the first time on the Hill of Tara, Nora. And don't forget that details of our next trip are scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Paul Goran is in Rathtoe, or Toa Rath, in the county of Meath, just again a short distance down the road from us here in the Boyne Valley. Wow. Anyway, I hope everyone's in good form. Tonight we are going to dip into the work of Sylvester O'Halloran. This was actually published in 1778. Now, as with some of the other histories of the time, it begins with that aspect of history which scholars now refer to as pseudo-history, that part of our history which cannot be sort of written with any certainty, and much of which belongs in the realm of mythology. In fact, the book really starts with a repeat of a lot of the material that's in Lebor Gabála, in the Book of Invasions. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody before I keep going. Good stuff. So just one thing to note is that at the time this book was published, this history was not a history for the ordinary Irish folk. Why? Well, because the ordinary Irish folk in 1778 couldn't read or write, nor would they have been able to read English anyway, because they're all native Irish speakers. This is a book that would have been written for O'Halloran's peers. There's a list of subscribers, among which you will find all sorts of names of lords and the gentry in Ireland and in Britain, and some clergy, for instance. So this is a highbrow publication written for educated, mostly gentlemen. I'll put that in quotes, gentlemen. This wasn't the sort of thing that would have been widely available. It probably cost a few pennies. And if you were a subscriber, it meant basically you were wealthy and you had money. However, it still has value, absolutely, as a study of the history of Ireland. Okay, as I say, it begins really in the realm of mythology. However, I think you'll find that it's interesting nonetheless. I will actually read the dedication, which is to the Right Honourable Murragh O'Brien, who at that time was the Earl and Baron of Inchiquin, the Baron of Burren, and Lord Lieutenant and Custos Rotolorum of the county of Clare, no less. But anyway, while I quickly scroll through the list of subscribers, let me just shout out a few names so you get the idea of the sort of people that this book would have been aimed at. The Honourable and Right Reverend Dr. Butler of Cork, Sir Lucius O'Brien, Edmund Burke, member for Bristol, presumably a politician or an MP, Richard Burke, captain in the regiment Hibernia in the service of Spain, for instance, Mr. Charles O'Brien, merchant, London, Reverend Dr. O'Connolly, family chaplain to His Catholic Majesty. Wow. Mr. Joseph Core, merchant, Cadiz. The Duke of Devonshire, Lord Dartry, Count Dillon, Baron Darcy, Right Honourable Sir Rob, is it Tilson Dean? Wow. And Lady Dean. You know what I mean? Again, this wasn't the sort. Duke of Leinster is in there. Earl Glendore, Duke de Fitzjames. There's a Norman name if ever I heard one. The Archbishop of Narbonne, Earl Ossory. Wow, incredible stuff. The Marquis of Rockingham and Earl Ross. And of course, the Earl of Ross was one of the Earls of Ross, was the builder of that great telescope, the Leviathan of Parsonstown. So anyway, yeah, this wasn't the sort of thing that ordinary folk got to read. However, we are ordinary folk, and we're going to have a little delve into O'Halloran's history. Now, this is a sort of a facsimile reprint. It's printed in large type. It's not the clearest in places. And you know the way the old S's that look like F's? It's printed like that. I do also have a PDF version. So I have that as a backup. If I have difficulty reading a word or a passage, I can refer to the PDF version. Let me see if I'm missing anyone else. Brendan Byrne rightly points out there are not too many paupers on that list. Definitely not. I don't really care much for titles, is the full Irish Gary, who's I didn't say hello to, also met on the Hill of Tara and at Ishnock. We got rid of that nonsense a long time ago. Yeah, well, we did, and there are still people in Ireland carrying titles, legacy of times past. But anyway, Indira is it Stefaniana, catching you from Santa Anita Racetrack in Arcadia, California. Wow, what are you watching? Is there racing going on right now? Brilliant stuff, Indira. Such a pleasure to welcome you. A very good afternoon to all our viewers in California. Tara Sky Dressler is in Pincher Creek in Alberta. A very good afternoon, Tara. Lovely name, by the way. Published before the 1798 rebellion, Marcus points out. Yes, indeed. What did I say? 1778. A decade before. Wow. Peter Kennedy is in the house watching from Balbriggan. Good evening, Peter. Welcome to the live stream. Anyway, sorry, I was going to read and I lost my place. This is the dedication to the Earl and Baron of Inchiquin and the Baron of Burren and Lord Lieutenant, etc. My Lord, formal addresses in these in publications of this era, you see these formal addresses. No nation, and now this is a true statement, right? You're listening to this. Cornelia Hughes is watching from the Scottish Highlands. Hello, Cornelia, and a very good evening to you. Hope all is well. T is watching from Offaly. T. That's an interesting one. Annette Peard is in the house. Hi from Tara. Lovely to meet you up there, Annette. Pardon me. Glad you were able to make the time to come and see us. Sean Taylor would love to go to Ireland and research my clans. Be careful with that one. I'm always saying, yeah, you never know what's in your family tree. A few bad apples, probably in all our trees. Porrick Byrne is watching from Mount Mellick. Good evening to you, Porrick. A pleasure to welcome you to the library. My Lord, no nation paid greater attention to its history and antiquities than the ancient Irish. That's the opening statement to the Right Honourable Murrogh O'Brien in Sylvester O'Halloran's A General History of Ireland from the earliest accounts to the close of the 12th century. The care of letters was a particular object of state attention, and the laws and ordinances respecting history, philosophy, and poetry became a part of the studies of our monarchs. The numerous universities. Sorry, I'm just going to make sure I can keep the PDF on the screen so that I can refer to it if there are words that are difficult. The numerous universities of the kingdom were founded on such liberal principles that not only the natives, but strangers from different parts of Europe were received into them and supplied with all the necessaries of life and even with books gratis. Yes. One wonders whether at the time Mr. O'Halloran provided copies of his book gratis. I somehow doubt it. The Venerable Bede is an unexceptionable, yes, that's what it says, unexceptionable authority on these facts, with respect to the Saxons. And proofs are not wanting that such was the case with other nations of Europe. Need more, my lord, be said to the point. What is that? Sorry, I apologize. Need more, my lord, be said to the point than. Oh, sorry, I get it now. It's just the way he has broken the sentence. Need more, my lord, be said to the point than that such was the preeminence of the Irish in letters that, by universal consent, the kingdom acquired the title of Insula Doctorum. Yeah, interesting. I presume that means the island of doctors. But the protection they vouchsafed to the sciences did not diminish their love for arms. In other countries, arts and letters were the consequences of power and conquests. In Ireland, they attended and added vigour to both. Glory, intrepidity, and the love of their country were the constant themes of the antiquarians and bards. Funny enough, here is a writer who's not trying to paint the ancient Irish as barbaric heathens. And how well our princes, our nobility, and military profited by their lessons, our annals sufficiently proclaim. I'm not sure, I actually don't know the story of O'Halloran. I'm not sure what his background was, whether he was Irish or perhaps connected with some of the Norman families, or whether he was British. Of course, at this time, am I right? No, the Act of Union was passed in 1800, wasn't it? Interesting. But again, when he says our princes, our nobility, you have to be careful. Is he talking about just the Irish, or is he talking about, those of what would become the United Kingdom? Whilst the rest of the world bent the knee to all powerful Rome, Ireland alone remained free and independent, and held forth her arms to support every struggle for liberty in Britain and Gaul. From Tacitus, we may collect that Rome could not count on the peaceable possession of Britain until Ireland was subdued, being the country from whence the disaffected drew their resources. And the subsequent periods of our history will shew, SHEW, who were the real authors and promoters of these mighty confederacies which accelerated the ruin of that extended empire. Josie Weatherford is saying, I think he was a doctor from Limerick. Well, O'Halloran is an Irish name, isn't it? I'm not sure. Norman Irish, perhaps, Margaret asks. Yes, indeed. Not sure. Wall Ainberg is saying, greetings from Hyperborea. A very good evening to you. You're welcome to the live stream. Excuse me. Pilar Goldstein Day is in the house. I didn't say hello to you earlier, and a very good evening from the Boyne Valley. Desiree Riley's pups are awaiting for Coda's salute. He's actually quiet. As soon as I said, guaranteed in the next few minutes, he's going to start making lots of noise. Okay. Why an history in itself so curious and instructive, which throws new lights on history and chronology in general, and what makes it still more valuable, which is the only one of all the nations of Europe that has been transmitted to us pure and uninterrupted from the remotest antiquity to this day. Why, I say, it should be not only greatly neglected, but grossly misrepresented in modern times is not to my purpose to inquire. Of course, he's talking about the history of Ireland being transmitted, but of course, we now accept that a certain part of that being in the realm of mythology, maybe what we call pseudo history. But as I'm always saying, be careful with that one, because there's a lot in myth that has been proven to be true. Mariana Dunn will have to watch later as we're celebrating Memorial Day. That's okay, Mariana. We'll catch you later on. Good of you to say hello. Tarini Pendleton is watching from Laguna Beach in California. A very good afternoon to you from the Boyne Valley. It is sufficient, my lord, that, animated with the love of truth and of my country, I have laboured to render that justice to our ancestors which has been so long denied them, and to lay open to public view these annals which seemed to have been destined to dust and oblivion. A work of this kind, extracted from pure native records, unsophisticated with modern systems and modern opinions, I flatter myself will appear no unacceptable present to your lordship and to the curious. Live Irish Myths 2 centuries later, 234 years later, the Mythflix tour are watching and listening. Did he know at that time such a thing would happen in the future? Of course he didn't. Am I missing anybody? Tinkle Tink. Hello, Tinkle Tink. Welcome to Live Irish Myths. To whom, my lord, with greater propriety could such an attempt be inscribed, or who better entitled to this mark of respect and attention than the Earl of Inchiquin, the lineal descendant of the first of heroes and legislators, the renowned Brian Boru. Somebody in the comments said that the current did somebody say the current Earl of Inchiquin is a descendant of Brian Boru? Obviously, a descendant of this same O'Halloran, perhaps, or sorry, this same O'Brien, Murragh O'Brien. The renowned Brian Boru, and through him of Heber, eldest son of Milesius. Wow. To support, that's the claim anyway, to support and protect whatever may tend to elucidate the history of Ogygia, and by your precepts, as well as example, to induce others to unite in a cause for interesting to letters. So interesting to letters are, in fact, my lord, duties which you owe to your dignity and to your ancestors, as well as to your country. For what avails it that Ireland should in justice rank foremost amongst the nations of Europe, and that her sons, for purity, antiquity, and nobility of blood, exceed all others in these facts, if these facts are not properly set forth? Her title to precedence is not the less valid because it has not been fully asserted, and it may be said that the neglect of Irish history is the only enemy to its dignity. I like that. The neglect of Irish history is the only enemy to its dignity. I like that. That's good. Yeah, I agree. From your lordship, for instance, to Heber are reckoned 93 generations in your house, of which number 84 were kings of Thomond, kings of Munster, or monarchs of Ireland. So justly may the Avatis Edita Regibus of Horace be applied to your lordship. Thus, a peerage could be no accession of honour to it, and this is so true that all North Munster were in flames when it first became known that such a title was adopted. The same thing happened in Ulster when Con O'Neill assumed the title of Earl of Tyrone. It was the case of McCarthy in Desmond and Fitzpatrick in Ossory, and etc. For, however solicitous I have been to render this work worthy public attention. Is there an of missing there? I have been to render this work worthy public attention, your lordship's protection and the title which it bears, yet I am satisfied that an undertaking on so extensive a plan on a new blah 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 blah. Yeah. Stop licking up to him, will you? You're wonderful. Anyway, I'm going to skip the preliminary discourse, which it happens is quite an extensive essay. No, I'm going to get straight to the history of Ireland, Book 1, Chapter 1. Are we all sitting comfortable? Keep them alive, Nora. Absolutely. Jacqueline is watching from just north of Vancouver. Jackie, is that right? Is that where that's where you're watching from? A very, very good afternoon to you from the Boyne Valley. I'm just making sure I haven't missed anyone else. Lots and lots. Maureen Joyce is in the house. Hello, Maureen. Lots and lots and lots of wonderful conversation going on. In the year of the world, according to the Hebrew computation, 2736, in the month of Bel, or May, which we still call Bealtaine today, not Beltane, by the way, Bealtaine, and the 17th day of the moon's age, according to the relation of Amergin, high priest of this expedition, Ireland was invaded by a numerous body of select troops from Galicia in Spain. After subduing the country and establishing their government on a permanent basis, as shall be related in its place, they set on foot an antiquity into the history. Let me just check that that's exactly what's. I do apologize. It's the text is sometimes a little bit lightly printed and a little bit difficult to make out. Just forgive me for one moment while I just scroll forward on the PDF version to the right location. What does it actually say? I will tell you if I can zoom in. Where's the zoom? Plus. Control plus will do it. They set on foot an inquiry into the history and antiquities of the people thus reduced, how long they had been in the kingdom, and what colonies had preceded them, etc. The result of their researches produced the following relations, which have been as carefully transmitted from age to age as those of their own particular exploits and those of their ancestors. Which is an interesting thing that the older histories say something that the modern histories don't really say. That these things were recorded as fact and transmitted from age to age and from generation to generation. Now there's kind of tends to be a suggestion that at least some of it was made up by the monks, etc. In the year of the world 1956, Partholan, in this case spelt Paortholan. So you'll see Partholon with an ON at the end and an AN. Again, spellings vary from manuscript to manuscript. Partholan, the son of Sarah, the son of Sru, the son of Asru, the son of can't read that word, the son of Framant, son to Fahochta, the son of Magog, son to Japheth, the son of Noah, landed in Ireland. So there you go. Partholon was a distant descendant of Noah. Accompanied by his wife Alga, Ealga, or Algnat, Ealgnait. Now, I looked up this. Alga is one of those many poetic names for Ireland, apparently. So she's a little bit like Banba, Fola, Eru, which are all sort of poetic names. Of course, Eru is Era Ireland, is the name of Ireland, the one that has stuck from the myths. But Alga apparently is another one of those, a name for Ireland. And interestingly, these names are all feminine. His three sons, Ruria, Slania, and Lylina, with their wives and 1,000 soldiers. The Book of Invasions, from which this relation is taken, fixes the time of his landing to be 278 years after the flood. But Mr. O'Flaherty makes it 35 years later. Differences, however, of little consequence to transactions so remote and uninteresting. I don't think it's uninteresting. I think you're being a bit dismissive there, Sylvester. Shall we call you sly? No pun intended, honestly. The cause of his flying from his native country, Greece, we are told, was the inhuman murder of his father and mother, with a resolution to cut off also his elder brother in order to possess himself of the supreme command. But his patricide and villainy were so universally detested that he was compelled to fly the country and seek new abodes, and at length, as we see, with his followers, reached Ireland. Is somebody late? Paul Campbell, thank you. Mavanwe Melward, welcome to the house. Yes. Yes, indeed. Yes. The Book of Conquests mentions, but as an affair not authenticated, that before the arrival of Partholan, Ireland was possessed by a colony from Africa, under the command of Ciocall, Ciocall, between whom and the newcomers a bloody battle was fought, in which the Africans were cut off. It is recorded that at this time there were found in Ireland but 3 lakes and 9 rivers, whose names are particularly mentioned. But from this it appears probable that the parts of the country in which these lakes and rivers appeared were only what were then known, and that as their successors began to explore and lay open other parts, the rivers and lakes then appearing were entered into the national annals as they were discovered. But as no previous mention could have been made of them, and what the different periods in which they were found out were distinctly marked, succeeding annalists have dated the first bursting forth of each from the time of its discovery. That's an interesting take, isn't it? That instead of these lakes and rivers actually bursting forth, that the annals took note of the times when they were first seen, as it were. Ireland, in the earlier part of prehistory, before the arrival of the Neolithic Revolution, was very, very heavily forested, and it would have been extremely difficult to travel any distance inland from the coast. Our writers are very exact in the times in which these lakes and rivers appeared. It cuts a conspicuous even, not conspicuous, Anthony, conspicuous figure in our history, and proves the extreme accuracy of our early writers, but a very unjustifiable credulity in their successors, who could suppose the first discovery of them to be their apologies. I can't read that. Apologies. Who could suppose the first discovery of them to be their first rise, is what it is. Though the learned Dr. Hutchinson, Bishop of Down and Connor, has taken no small pains to defend it. But as it appears to me almost a certainty that, with a very few exceptions, rivers and lakes are nearly coeval with the creation, the reader will, I hope, excuse my taking any further notice of this part of our history. Soon after the landing of Partholan, his son Sláine died and was interred on the side of a mountain in the present county of Down. From him, denominated Slieve Sláine, Slieve being Irish for a mountain, which is Slieve Donard, isn't that? Slieve Sláine is the same as Slieve Donard, that great sort of conical or pyramidal shaped mountain in the, I think, in the county of Down, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it does. It says the present county of Down, Anthony. That's exactly where it is. Leilina also died and was buried near a lake in Meath, and from him is called Loch Leilina. And from the place of Ruria's interment, the adjoining lake was called Loch Ruria. After a reign of 30 years, Partholan quitted this life at Myalta in Meath, leaving the kingdom between his four sons, born in Ireland, whose names were, let me just check that I have these right. Yeah, Ear. I know we tend to say ear, but in Irish, Yar, Orba or Orva, if you lend it the B, Fjarn and Fjargna. We are surprised to find in the retinue of this prince 4 men of letters, 3 druids, 3 generals, a knight, a beatach or keeper of open house, and 2 merchants whose names are preserved in our annals. The sons of Partholan, we are told, governed with great wisdom, as did their successors for some generations, till at length, we all know what happens next. Gary, the full Irish GK, knows this one. A violent plague broke out, which swept away the greatest part of this colony. By this means, the kingdom, which for near 300 years was governed by the posterity of this prince, continued for 30 years after in a state of anarchy. The greatest number that were carried off by this contagion was at Ben Heather. It's unusual spelling of Ben Ether, which is Hoth, near Dublin. Ben-Hedior. Ben Heather. Interesting. Salav is in the house. A very good evening, as is George Anderson. Good evening. Joe Butler is here as well. Saskia had to go out there, and I think she's yelping to get back in again. I may have to vacate the chair for a moment if she yelps again. I'll have to let her in. And the place is adjacent, from which circumstance we may infer that it was brought into the kingdom by some ship or ships. The mortality was so rapid that experience pointed out the utility, instead of different burial places, which only served to spread the disorder, of fixing on one common place, in which the dead were to be thrown indiscriminately, and which from this circumstance, says the Book of Conquests, was ever after called Tala or Tavlacht, Muncher Partholon, a Tavlacht being like a grave, Lacht being like a grave flagstone, or the burial place of the posterity of Partholan. After the reception of Christianity, a celebrated monastery was founded on this ground, to this day called Tavlacht, or as we know it in English, the anglicised version, Tala. Full Irish is still searching for the mass grave site in Tala. It might be under a housing estate, Gary, you know. James Cregan is in Cork and is saying good evening. A very warm welcome to you. James, good of you to join us. Chapter 2. It appears that Partholan did not bring with him to Ireland all his family. An infant son remained in Greece called Allah, Adhla. Yeah, just checking. And Nevid, his successor, after many generations, prepared with a large fleet and army to follow the fortunes of his lineage in Ireland. This armament consisted of 34 ships and 30 persons in each ship, besides his wife Macha and his four sons. Let me just check the names: Starn, Irvanel, the prophet, Fergus, and Einin. An African colony had been settled in the north long before the arrival of the Milesians, the Nemedians, who were far from being so barbarous as represented. It is recorded that Nevid had employed 4 of their artisans to erect for him 2 sumptuous palaces, which were so highly finished that, jealous lest they might construct others on the same or perhaps a grander plan, he had them privately made away with the day after they had completed their work, a manifest proof at which side the barbarity lay. Soon after this, Macha, the wife of Nevid, died, and from the place of her interment it took the name of Ard Macha, or Macha's eminence. And here again we see the institution of a sacred place, probably involving some games in honor of a female entity. Take, for instance, Tolchu, after Lou's foster mother. And I always say Bruna Bonia, and lately I've been talking about Enoch and Broa, well, that complex dedicated in honor of Bowen. The Favori, or Africans, I don't know how it became to be decided that the Fomorians were Africans. I really don't know. Jealous of the Nemedians, prepared to engage them in battle, they met near Slieve Blama in Leinster, again at Rus Freachon in Connacht. Freachon. What's Freachon? I know Freachon is a crow. What's F-R-A-O-C-A-I-N? Well, I presume there'd be a H. F-R-A-O-C-H-A-I-N. I know that word. Somebody's going to tell me very quickly. What is Freachon? Rus Freachon in Connacht. And a third time near the, I just want to make sure, I can't read that word properly. Tor, it looks like Tor. Tor Cunning, the principal settlement of these pirates, in all which battles the Nemedians were victorious. But a fourth engagement taking place by mutual agreement at Knovrus. Is it Knovrus? I want to check again. Yeah, Knovrius in Leinster. The Nemedians were entirely defeated, and among the slain were the son and nephew of Nevid. Shortly afterwards, this prince himself died of grief and disappointment. The Africans began to lord it with a high hand over the poor remains of these adventurers. That PDF copy must be a different edition, because it doesn't say the poor remains of these adventurers. It just says the Africans now began to lord it with a high hand over these adventurers. Interesting. They imposed heavy taxes on them, which they were obliged to deliver in every 1st of November at a place called from this tax Mai Gaine, or the Plain of Violence in the north. And of course, 1st of November is basically an English translation of Samhain. But as violence and severity are not the means to reconcile a vanquished people to their fate, the chiefs of the Nemedians conspired, and the oppressed poor were ready to engage in any attempt, how desperate soever, to recover their liberty. The principal conspirators were Fahok and Fergus, surnamed Latjarug, or Redside, sons of Nevid, and Beohach his grandson. Besides these, they had 3 heroes of especial note with their followers, men whose approved courage inspired the highest confidence in the whole party. I must now allow Saskia in because she is yelping and there is nobody on hand to allow her in. So let me do that for a moment. Come on. In you go. Yeah. Oh. That's one thing about Saskia. When she says something, it must be done, or she just keeps saying it, keeps demanding it. They soon sought for and engaged the Africans with a resolution equal to the desperan. Sorry. Desperateness. Sorry. With a resolution equal to the desperateness of their affairs. In this battle, Conning, the son of Favor, the African chief, with most of his troops, were slain, and their principal garrison, Tor Cunning, levelled to the ground. Soon after this, More, the son of Dela, More, wow, More, the son of Dela, who had been absent with his fleet, endeavouring to land in this northern quarter, an island in the present Tyrconnell, was opposed by the Nemedians, but after a bloody conflict, these last were defeated with great slaughter, such as escaped the sword perishing in the water. The affairs of the Nemedians became more desperate than ever. They had no alternative but to submit to the most abject slavery at home, to seek better days in other climes. The latter they chose. Simon Brack, the son of Starn, the son of Nevid, led a colony of them back to Greece, where it appears they only changed climates, not circumstances, being there cruelly oppressed by their relations. From this people are descended the Fervologs, of whom we shall treat in the next chapter. Yovath, another grandson of Nevid, sailed to Greece. Failed to Greece. Apologies. I'll stop giggling now. Sailed to Greece also, as the Book of Invasions tells us, with his followers. And it'd nearly be better reading the PDF version. And Britain, Briotan, the son of Fergus, son of Nevid, with his people landed in North Britain, from whence his posterity gradually extended themselves more to the southward. The few that remained behind were cruelly oppressed by these Africans till the landing of the posterity, till the landing of the posterity of Simon Brack, to which no traces of history are met with. Writers are not agreed as to the time in which this colony ruled Ireland. Mr. O'Flaherty makes them residents here. I'm going to see if I can just read the PDF version because it's clearer. Let me just see if I can drag that over in such a position as I can actually read it and look at the camera at the same time. Writers are not agreed as to the time in which this colony ruled Ireland. Mr. O'Flaherty makes their residence here to be 216 years, but this cannot be reconciled to reason and chronology, since we have seen that the grandchildren of this Nevid quitted the country, so that if we allow 100 years for this space of time, it is as much as in reason can be demanded. Add to this that Giolach Keevan affirms, as does the Book of Invasions and the Psalter of Cashel, Keating, Lynch, etc. Here he's naming all the sources. That from the landing of Nevid to that of his successors, The Belgae, inclusive, was 217 years, and yet Mr. O'Flaherty, in shortening the time of the Partholonians remaining in Ireland, makes the rule of the Nemedian colony there to last 216 years, and to reconcile the whole of his chronology, he fixes the coming in of their successors, the Belgae, at 412 years later. Contrary to every evidence of antiquity. It's interesting. They're talking here about evidence. It's like, lads, this isn't evidence. This is mythology mostly, you know. In justice to the memory of this learned gentleman, I must, just pardon me while I skip down to the next page, I must observe that the first mistake arose from an opinion that Nevid was grandson to Partholon, but to reconcile the accounts handed down from us from remote antiquity on this head to reason, as we shall show them reconcilable to sound chronology, we should, as I have done, rather suppose Nevid thought of the same line to be some generations later. Before I close this article on Nevid, I must observe that this prince cut down 12 large woods and cleared the land for tillage. Many mentions of that in our early myths. Chapter 3. We observed in the last chapter that Simon Brack led the first embarkation of the fugitive Nemedians to Greece, where they increased greatly, insomuch as to become formidable to the natives, so that in their own defence they reduced them to severe bondage. We are told that, like the Israelites in Egypt, they were the hewers of wood and drawers of water to these people, that they were compelled to dig in the low, deep soil and carry the earth in leathern bags to cover and improve the barren places. And this led me add, it says LED, I think that should be let, is a striking proof of the wisdom and industry, I shall not say much of the humanity, of the people who employed them. From this, it is said, they got the name of Fervulugs, or bag men. Though groaning under these severities, it appears they lived together, and the country which their ancestors were compelled to quit, they often discoursed of. It is not improbable, but that some intercourse might have been from time to time kept up between them and their friends in Ireland. But be this as it may, it is agreed upon by all our historians that a considerable body of these people, no less in number than 5,000, under 5 leaders, the descendants of Nevid, landed in Ireland AM 2503, Anno Mundi, the age of the world. The names of these chiefs were Slania, Ruria, Gan, Gannon, and Shangan. Their fleet was in 3 divisions. The first, under the command of Slania, landed in the Bay of Wexford, from him called Inverslania, which I think isn't it the estuary of the Slaney, with 1,000 men, for Inver in Irish denotes a bay. The second, led on by Gan and Shangan, anchored at Inver Dunglashe in the north, with 2,000 men. And the third, commanded by Gannon and Ruria at Inver Dovnon in Connacht, also with 2,000 men. In other words, there were 5,000 men, 1,000 for each of the 5. They divided the kingdom into 5 equal partitions, according to the authority of a most ancient poet, quoted in the Book of Invasions. There is a footnote there. Who is that? Gowel Fiar Mulg Arion. Okay, and that is the poem is how the Fervulug took Ireland. Slania the eldest had for his share the province of Galain, or Leinster. Gan and Shangan had the 2 Munsters allotted to them, Gannon the province of Connacht, and Ruria that of Ulster. The people themselves we find distinguished by different names. The Fervulugs, so called from the leathern bags in which they remove the earth. The Fur Dovnans from their digging deep in the earth, from Dovna, a depth, to which the word fur, or men, is joined. And Fur Gillian, or spearmen, from Gillian, Gillain, Gillain, meaning a spear, as their duty was to protect the workmen. Fascinating stuff. Rex Fortenbury is in the house. Vicky Wallace-Sutherland is in the house as well. Hello indeed to Vicky and Evan and Chili. If you're watching, a very good afternoon to you also. From this account, we reasonably surmise that the tale which the newcomers gave of their sufferings to their relations in Ireland had more of policy than truth in it, in order to excite their compassion and make their own reception more cordial. From it, we should infer that the country allotted to them in Greece to live was very barren, that their own industry supplied this deficit, and that their military guarded their frontiers from the incursions of barbarous invaders. This is certainly the natural induction. Sláine, the eldest, with the dominion of Leinster, assumed the title of monarch of the whole island. He's the one, by the way, we discussed before in other live streams and videos, is the one, Sláine, who gave his name to Slane, and he's supposed to be buried on the hill of Slane, just a few miles west of us here, beyond Brunebonia. Assumed the title of monarch of the whole island, as Gjolla Cavan, and all our antiquarians agree, was the first king in Ireland. After a reign of 1 year, he died and was interred at the side of a mount in Leinster called Sláine from him, the aforementioned Hill of Slane. Ruaidhri was his successor. He ruled as monarch 2 years and then gave way to his brothers Gan and Giannon, who directed the government for 4 years. Shangan was the next monarch. He swayed the scepter for 5 years. See what's going on here? The first ruled for 1 year, the second for 2, the third for 3, and etc., 4 and 5. Shangan was the next monarch. He swayed the scepter 5 years when he fell in battle by the sword of Fiacha, called Cin Fionnon, or the Whitehead, the son of Ruaidhri. At the end of 5 years more, i.e. AM 2521, he met the fate of his predecessor by the hand of Reinal, the son of Giannon. Reinal reigned 6 years and was slain in the Battle of Creva. His successor, wait, 7 years, shall we guess? His successor was Fievgian, the son of Shangan. After a reign of 4 years, oh, I'm shocked, he fell in the Battle of Morhevna in the county of Louth, which, by the way, is here spelled Lowth. We spell it these days Louth. But anyway, all named from the deity we know as Lou Samel Donach, or Lou Lovefada, Lou MacEthnan, Lou McCain, Lou Lunanchglech. That's 5 names. Lou has at least one more name that I can't think of immediately. There you go. Yochi, the son of Erk, the son of Reinal, ruled Ireland for 10 years in great splendour and glory, at the end of which time a period was put to his life and to the government of the Belgian race in Ireland by new invaders, whose history we will give in the next chapter. His queen was Talcha, daughter of the King of Spain, and the place for her interment still retains that name, and that is, of course, Talcha, or Telltown in Meath, where the games that were initiated at the time of her death were said to have been held throughout the course of prehistory and into Irish history, and even into almost modern times. All our antiquarians agree that the Belgians ruled Ireland for 37 years, and when he says Belgians, he's talking about the Firvolg. The learned O'Flaherty thinks it could not be less than 80, but I think it more judicious to adhere to the testimonies of antiquity than to the conjectures of moderns, who certainly cannot have had those opportunities of information which the earlier writers must have possessed. Yeah, that's true. That's something that is forgotten, that at the time a lot of these things were written down, there was access to sources that are now defunct, as it were, especially oral sources, you know. Let me just see if there's anybody that I have neglected to say hello to, or not sure if I said hello earlier to Adina Sparks. Adina, you're welcome. I think I said hello to Rex Fortenberry, who's in Louisiana. Have we time for a bit more? Sure, look, you usually say yes. It'd be very unusual for people to say no, we're too tired. Chapter 4. Chapter 4. In the year of the world 2541, and the 10th of the reign of Yochi, son of Erk, Ireland was invaded by a new colony who were called the Damnonii. Now, I think that's a Latinized version, Damnonii, who were also the descendants of Nevid by his grandson Jobath, and, like their predecessors, the Firvolugs, fled to Greece from the tyranny of the Africans who so long lorded it over Ireland. Our antiquarians assign two reasons for their being called Damnonii or Tua de Danans. The first, to denote their descent from the three sons of Danan, the daughter of Delbaith, son of Alu, son of Ned. The second derivation is that the people were divided into three classes: the nobility, who were so called from Tua, a lord, the priests from D, God, or J, and the Danans, who composed the hymns and sung the praises of the Supreme from Dan, a poem. These people quitted Greece on account of a mighty invasion from Syria, and after a variety of adventures, at length arrived in Denmark, where they were received with great humanity by the people, who assigned them tracts of land to cultivate and 4 cities to inhabit. Interesting here that we're looking at pseudo-historical or prehistoric or early historic, whatever you want to call it, refugees fleeing conflict and going to another country. Where have we seen that now? In these cities, masters were appointed to instruct the people in arts and sciences. And the names of these cities, or rather universities, as well of the superintendents of them, are yet preserved. After spending, who is in the house? Ida Pernarella, hello, Ida, welcome. But there is a Mandy, no, not a Mandy, Julie, who's the Julie that has arrived, who we have not had the opportunity to say hello to? Oh, Dave Hoover is in Portland in Oregon. Dave, you're very, very welcome. Julie M is here for a rare appearance at a live reading. Brilliant stuff, Julie. You're very, very welcome to Live Irish Myths. And I just want to pop up Ida's comment as well, just to show that I wasn't displaying favoritism. We give everybody a chance, or we certainly do. Lovely to hear that. Evan and Chile did indeed say hello, and I'm going to say hello again to Evan and Chile. A very, very special hello to my wonderful friends. Liam Anderson. Thank you, Liam. Thank you indeed. Glad you're enjoying it. Mo Nesbitt. Maureen in Rochester, New York, is watching. Hello, Mo. You're very, very welcome. Good afternoon to you. After spending a considerable time in this country, but how long is not specified, they sailed for North Britain under the command of who we would know him as Nuadu, the 12th in succession from Nevid. Here they remained 7 years, when they invaded the northern coasts of Ireland and, among other curiosities, brought with them the famous Leofoil, or Stone of Destiny, on which all our succeeding monarchs were crowned, and on which the British princes have been inaugurated since the reign of Edward I, who had it conveyed from the Abbey of Scone. On the reduction of North Britain by Fergus the Great, the son of Arca, to make his possession of the... By the way, when did Edward I reign? Perhaps somebody either knows that or can Google it quickly. When was the supposed Leofoil conveyed from the Abbey of Scone, and when was it conveyed allegedly from Tara to Scone? On the reduction of North Britain by Fergus the Great, the son of Arca, to make his possession of the country more solemn, he requested of his brother, the Monarch of Ireland, the use of this stone to be crowned on, for it had been a received opinion that, in what country soever this stone should be preserved, there a prince of the Scythian or Irish race should govern, according to the very old, though well-known Ran or verse, which is given in Irish, but also translated, the Scots shall give law and rule to whatever country this stone is placed in, if the fates are to be credited. and of course the Scots. They're referring to the Irish. In respect to antiquity, I have given this short account of this wonderful stone, which tradition says made a strange noise when any of the true line of Milesians were crowned, but otherwise was silent. It still remains under the inauguration chair in Westminster Abbey, but by the name of Jacob's Stone. And of course, that is a British Israelite thing. Definitely watch the episode we did with Mairead Carew on the British Israelites and Tara. 1272 to 1307. Oh, that long ago. Wow. Okay. Thank you to Kathy May and Rosemary and Desiree for that information. On the landing of the Danans, they set fire to their ships to show their people that they had no resources but in their courage, and by the help of a thick fog, got 3 days' march of their enemies before they had a certainty where they were, and which incident they had cunning enough to impose on the people to have been brought about by their skill in necromancy. Hence, it's not hence, Anthony, it's just here. Here they called a council and sent heralds to the monarch Yochi to resign the kingdom to them or determine the conquest in a pitched battle. The latter he accepted, and after a most bloody engagement on the plains of South Moitura, that's Moitura to you and I, in which he fell by the sword of Nuadu, or Nua, who lost a hand in the conquest, the whole Belgian army was routed, that's the Furvulugs, having left 10,000 men slain on the spot. The remains of their scattered troops fled different ways and retired to the Isles of Arran, Man, Illa, to Britain and the Hebrides, waiting a more favourable opportunity to recover that country which the fate of war deprived them of. Nuadu, the chief of this colony, is not placed in the Book of Invasions as the first monarch of the Danan race. We find his cousin Bras, Breas, proclaimed the first inaugurated on their famous stone. The reason I conceive to be this: in these early days, and indeed in every succeeding period of Irish history, any corporeal defect was a sufficient exclusion from the monarchy. Of course, Bres was the one who was descended from the Fomorians, under whose reign the Tuatha Dé Danann were enslaved. We've read this several times before in Cot Moitura and in other episodes. This Nuadu felt. We find his hand healed by the skill of Miach, his physician, and an artificial one of silver, exactly fitted to the stump by Creda, his goldsmith, from which he ever after went by the name of Aragadlov, or the Silver Hand. Thus assisted, he reclaimed the monarchy as his right, to which we see Bres obliged to assent after a reign of 7 years. Nuadu, possessed of the monarchy, reigned 20 years. During this period, Bres ill bore the loss of the diadem. He entered into treaty with the Africans, Fomorians, who still held some places in the north. He sent emissaries to the exiled Belgians, Furvulug, who privately and in different parties entered the kingdom, and when at the head of a considerable party, he proclaimed his right to the crown. Nuadu prepared his army to meet his antagonist. They engaged on the plains of North Moitura in Connacht. The conflict was great and bloody, and we may judge of the carnage on both sides by the chiefs that fell. Belevniach, general of the Africans, Fomorians, the principal leaders of the Belgae, and Bras, the soul of the whole, fell on one side, while Nuadu himself, Ogma Grianon, and many leaders of the first rank among the Dadanans partook of the same fate. That's an interesting composite. Ogma Grianon. The Dadanans, however, gained the well-fought battle and sorely oppressed the remains of the Belgae for a considerable time afterwards. I don't know where the spellings come from. Luigha, Luigha, surnamed Love Father, or the Longhand, that's Lou, a descendant of Nevids, was the next monarch. Besides his blood, the uncommon intrepidity he displayed in the last battle, having with his own hand slain the African chief, that's the Fomorian chief Balor, seemed to call him to this dignity. He ruled with great prudence and, sensible of the utility of public shows and amusements, especially to a fierce military people, he instituted the Éanach Tailteann, so celebrated in every subsequent period of Irish history. The origins of this famous assembly is thus delivered by our Shanachis. Tailteann, daughter of a Spanish prince and the Queen of Yochi, the last monarch of the Firvolg, of the Belgian line, it says, the Firvolg, who fell in the Battle of South Moitura, afterwards married Diocha Garov, one of the Danann chiefs. And to her care and tuition, the present prince was delivered when very young, that is Lugh. Being a lady of great wisdom, she acquitted herself of her charge to universal satisfaction, and to commemorate her name and his gratitude, he ordered solemn tilts and tournaments every 1st of August, being the day of her death at Tailteann in Meath, the place of her interment. And it is now thought by scholars that the burial place of Tailteann was the passage tombs of Lough Crew, and that the site of the Éanach was a few miles, more than 10 miles, I think, to the southeast at Tailteann or Tailteann, close to the Blackwater River, which is a tributary of the Boyne. This great assembly was proclaimed 14 days before and continued 14 days after the 1st of August, during which time none who attended were to be molested in their persons or properties. From this institution and from this prince, the month of August is, to this day, called in Irish Lunas. Well, it's Lunas actually, but he has Lughnas, or of course, the Nasa of Lugh, the anniversary of Lugha, from whence the English word Lammas for August. It is recorded of this prince that he was the first who introduced the use of cavalry into Ireland. From the people of Thessaly's being such expert horsemen, before their use was known to the neighbouring nations, arose the fable of the centaurs. After a peaceable reign of 40 years, this prince died and was interred at Cuindrun, now Uisneach in Westmeath. And we'll be going there in early July. Yochi, another branch of the line of Nevid, was the succeeding monarch. In some of our genealogies, he is made brother to Bress, the first Danann ruler. And it is generally agreed reigned nearly 80 years. I think there's confusion there because Bress was, we can't call Bress the first Danann ruler. Nuadu was the first Danann ruler. Bress was the first Fomorian, what would you call him, an interloper or a pretender to the throne. And it is generally agreed reigned nearly 80 years, but this cannot be reconciled to chronology. But the Book of Invasions clears this up by calling him Elathar, the son of Elatham, so that he was the nephew, not the brother to Bress. And the length of this reign by this means cannot seem extraordinary. Delvaith, grandson to Ogma Grianon, succeeded to the throne, which he filled 10 years, and he was slain by his own son. Whoa, bloody stuff. Fiacha, the wretched parricide, that's, by the way, spelled Parricide. The wretched parricide reigned 10 years and was cut off in the Battle of Ardbrach by Owen of Invermore, who pierced his body with a javelin. Macul, Maciacht, and Magrania, the three sons of Carmada, son of Yochi, and last princes of the Danann race, ruled Ireland alternately for 30 years. Their real names were Yahar, Chahar, and Kiahar, and we've again more than one episode in which these are related. We did episodes on Lebor Gabála, for instance. We are told the reason why their first names were imposed on them was because they adored different deities. That Yahar worshipped a log of wood, hence the name Macul, from coil, a wood. Chahar reverenced a ploughshare and was called Maciacht from Ceachta, a ploughshare, and Ceachar adored the sun and was therefore called Magrania, Grian being Irish for the sun. Such a story handed down from age to age at the same time that it shows a justly censurable credulity, yet, or credulity if you want, yet proves what little alterations or innovations were made in our annals. Our records agree that these Danans, or Danans he just has, were very learned, and we may venture to add, for those days, a very polished people. In their famous Leofoil, we may trace the origin of inauguration, since all wise nations, for political ends, will surely endeavour to make it believed that the crowning their princes is in itself a sacred act to gain it the greater reverence with the public. This colony, our annals declare, was the first which introduced the use of the sword, the spear, and the horse into war in Ireland. Besides these military improvements, we find them a commercial and maritime people. Orivsian was noted for his extensiveness in trade, and from Manannán, who reduced the Isle of Man, did it take its name. How absurd, then, to suppose the present ruling princes to adore a log of wood or a ploughshare for a god. Would the most ignorant African in Guinea be content with such deities? The plain and evident meaning of these names are that the first prince, Yahor, encouraged the building of ships and houses, hence Macul, as paying most attention to woods. The second promoted agriculture, hence Maciacht, or of the plough, and the third, being a devout prince, employed himself mostly in prayer and adoration, hence Magrania, or the sun, the only chief deity worshipped by all polished nations of antiquity, and which the Irish in a particular manner adored, not only at the period in question. Apologies while I skip to the next page. Oh, sorry. Apologies. But in every succeeding one till their conversion to Christianity. It is to be noticed that the queens of these princes were called Bamba, Fola, and Era, and which names from them have been given to Ireland, but more especially the last, which it retains at this day. In the year 2736, the sons of Meletius landed in Ireland, and, after spilling much blood, as will appear in its place, made a complete conquest of the kingdom, which their posterity governed with great glory for above 2,400 years, under 171 princes, all the descendants of the royal line of Meletius. And I think at 9:20, I am going to leave it there, which is at the end of chapter 4. I will mark that in the hard copy, published, printed version, so that we know where to start off the next episode. Yes, indeed. Chapter 5. There we go. Oh, so that is, so far, Sylvester O'Halloran's 1778 History of Ireland. Thank you, Desiree. Glad that you were able to enjoy that. Lexi Erickson is also in the house. I'm not sure if I said hello earlier, Lexi. A very good afternoon to you. Hope you are safe and well. Quite a genealogy, says Mandy. It gets very complex. Part of the reason is because some of the Inale kings wanted to prove their descendants, their connections to the Milesians. And it all gets very complex. Sandra Boothroyd, thank you, Sandra. Glad that you had a good night. Don't forget, our outing to Ishnok is on Saturday, the 9th of July. The tour starts at 11 a.m, so it would be very helpful if you arrived at the Hill of Ishnok at 10:30 a.m. I'm not charging any fee for that. There is a cost of €5 per person payable on the day. That's for the people at Ishnok. And afterwards, we will have a picnic. This walk is tougher down Tara, so make sure you have some sort of hiking boots or decent walking boots or shoes. And if you need it, a walking aid or a stick or something. and it will take around 2.5 hours in total from the visitor centre up onto the hill and back down again. Is about 2.5 hours. So we'll be hungry and thirsty, and we'll be well set for a feast when we're done. Keep an ear and an eye out for further announcements about gatherings over the course of the summer. We will be going to different locations at different times. That's all I can say. You will enjoy them. I have absolutely no doubt about that. Jeremiah did not travel to Ireland with the Stone of Bethel. Yes, I appeared on a program on Discovery Channel making that very argument about how much nonsense the British Israelites imposed upon the history of Ireland by suggesting that Jeremiah brought Leah, brought Leah Foyle, that Jeremiah brought the Ark of the Covenant to Ireland with him. And Lexi and Barbara are meeting, which is brilliant. And that's fantastic to see the Tua meeting in different parts of the world. And let's hold on to the hope and possibility of a Mythical Ireland visit to the States, and perhaps a small talking tour there. Let's hold on to that possibility. 33 degrees Celsius, says Elaine Dent Lingenfelter. Wow. Brilliant stuff, Mavanwi. Well, if you can make it, you'd be more than welcome. Don't forget that some people will inevitably offer lifts. Some people may be travelling from Dublin out the M4 as far as Mullingar and a little bit further to Ishnock. Don't forget also that if you'd like to support Mythical Ireland, as always, I do have to tell you that you can become a patron at patreon.com/Mythical Ireland, which is this address here. Patrons are currently being treated at the Bronze Age level and above to a page-by-page revelation of my latest book, which I'm still writing. And also, I did promise, and I'm still promising, the patrons will have the talk that I gave at Ishnock at the Fire Festival was about the Enoch of Brunabonia. The audio that I recorded at that talk is of poor quality. I'm going to re-record the whole thing and give it to you fresh. So patrons will be treated to that. So please do consider becoming a patron. Also on the 21st of June, which is Midsummer's Day, I'm giving a talk about summer solstice at Drogheda Library at 6:30 that evening. I think that's a Tuesday evening, if I'm not mistaken. On behalf of Louth Library Service, who I've done a number of events for. That event, if you can't make it in person, is also going to be live streamed. Now, Louth Libraries will provide that live stream, but I will provide the link for you on the social media channels. So if you're not able to come to Drogheda on the longest day of the year for that talk about summer solstice, you'll be able to watch it on live stream. And if you're not able to do either, it will be recorded, and hopefully I'll put it on YouTube afterwards. Brilliant. Thank you, Joe. Absolutely. Let's see what can come of this. Pacific Northwest people are very yes, they're very, very numerous, the followers of Mythical Ireland in PNW. Oh yeah, big time. And Colorado seems to be a close second at the moment. Anyway, we'll see you next week for, am I right? What date is today? Is the 30th of May. Yeah, we'll see you next week for the second in our series, reading from O'Halloran's history. If you're around in the Boyne Valley next weekend, which is the bank holiday weekend here, it's the June bank holiday weekend, I will be leading with Gráinne Rafferty tours of the mythological murals of Drogheda. There are 2 tours on Saturday. I won't be involved in the morning time one because I have another commitment. But in the afternoon, Saturday the 4th at 3 p.m, Sunday the 5th at 3 p.m, Monday the 6th at 3 p.m. And tickets can be ordered on the website boynevalleytrails.ie, and it's €10 ticket. Get them fast because that event is selling out quickly. In the meantime, all that it remains for me to do is to say thank you for joining us on the live stream. It's wonderful to have your company, as it has been for all previous 183 episodes, plus the other conversation episodes and the other the Zoom events that we had. What a wonderful honor and a pleasure, as always. Have a great day, no matter where you are in the world. Have a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, a great night. Ichawa, Kulasov, Slongafol, and most importantly of all, Tog Gubogay. Take it easy. I'm away off for a dram.